In order to qualify for the continuing legal education or the continuing education units, depending on what you call them in your industry, you must watch the entire 2-day conference, as well as watch the Erasing Family documentary film, which you can watch for free on YouTube, Tubi, or if you go to erasingfamily.org, you can also watch it there for free as well. So this conference has been accredited by the Florida Bar. They have assigned 15 continuing legal education units, 7 of which count towards your mental health criteria. So that means the remaining 8 count towards your general legal or ethics, because combination in there. So if you need to claim CLEs or CEUs for the year, then this conference can actually help accommodate at least half of what the criteria is. So if you self-report and you're not a Florida attorney, that's fine, as long as you're going to have to check with your industry, your state, your regulatory bodies, your management, and determine how you can do a self-report. Many people are able to claim these credits regardless of where they are around the world. So check into it to see if you can also claim the 15 CLEs or CEUs. Once you have completed watching the entire 2-day conference videos and the Erasing Family documentary film, send an email to info@thriverspeak.com and we will send you a certificate of course completion.
Give a shout out to our sponsors. You may have noticed several of the sponsors for the conference, and we really appreciate all that they're doing. Also, I can share our screen here. If you would like to just take a look at thriverspeak.com, you will see the entire conference and everything with all of the speakers' logos as well. So let me go on ahead and share that screen with everybody. We do want to give a second to thank everyone who has financially supported the conference. And you'll see that here. As I said, thriverspeak.com, nothing about us without us, presented by adult survivors of child psychological abuse related to parental alienation. And if you were to scroll down a little bit on the site, past today's and tomorrow's speakers, you'll see the big nonprofit partner of Kids Need Both, supporting healthy family relationships with Danica. And regrettably, Danica is under the Lakeland, Florida cleanup crew of Uncle Milty and Hurricane Milton that has hit so bad. But Kids Need Both is our nonprofit partner organization. And then we have our speakers' logos of Securing Everything, Sempi, Erasing Family, Andrew Folker, Dana Laquidara, and also Beyond Beautiful Beginnings, Triskel, and Cyberwatch, and our paying sponsors, including Speaking Success Secrets and Global Impact Rotary Club for Rotary International, and many others. If you'd like to become a sponsor and pay money into this, a couple of these are my companies. I can honestly say I did pay the money into them, and it was well worth it to do that. People have asked me, I saw your logo up there. Did you get that for free as a shank deal, or was it a trade-off? I was like, no, I actually paid for the sponsorship, and I encourage you to please pay for it as well. And yes, I think next year we will be in Australia, and then possibly come back to Tampa the year after, possibly. A couple of different packages you can join in on: the diamonds, the ruby, the sapphire, the emerald, and the big pink diamonds, $100,000 package. We're trying to grow this, obviously. These things cost a lot of money. The staging, the spotlights, the microphones, the camera systems, the Jumbotron, the breakout rooms, the coffee cart. You just try hosting a conference and you'll get a good taste of why they want $800 for a coffee cart, and you start adding muffins to it or cookies and things like that, and you're going to be at $1,500 with Marriott. So things in life are not free. And Jeff Imrie is also offering a commissioned angel wings sculpture And we've got a lot of other great deals here that you could come in on for PR marketing, social media, signage, physical security needs. We do have people that show up like today who, and you'll see that here. As I said, thriverspeak.com, nothing about us without us, presented by adult survivors of child psychological abuse related to parental alienation. And if you were to scroll down a little bit on the site, past today's and tomorrow's speakers, you'll see the big nonprofit partner of Kids Need Both, supporting healthy family relationships with Danica. And regrettably, Danica is under the Lakeland, Florida cleanup crew of Uncle Milty and Hurricane Milton that has hit so bad. But Kids Need Both is our nonprofit partner organization. And then we have our speakers logos of Securing Everything, Sempi, Erasing Family, Andrew Folker, Dana Laquidara, and also Beyond Beautiful Beginnings, Triskel and Cyberwatch, and our paying sponsors, including Speaking Success Secrets and Global Impact Rotary Club for Rotary International, and many others. If you'd like to become a sponsor and pay money into this, a couple of these are my companies. I can honestly say I did pay the money into them, and it was well worth it to do that. People have asked me, I saw your logo up there. Did you get that for free as a shank deal, or was it a trade-off? I was like, no, I actually paid for the sponsorship, and I encourage you to please pay for it as well. And yes, I think next year we will be in Australia, and then possibly come back to Tampa the year after, possibly. A couple of different packages you can join in on: the diamonds, the ruby, the sapphire, the emerald, and the big pink diamonds, $100,000 package. We're trying to grow this, obviously. These things cost a lot of money. The staging, the spotlights, the microphones, the camera systems, the Jumbotron, the breakout rooms, the coffee cart. You just try hosting a conference and you'll get a good taste of why they want $800 for a coffee cart, and you start adding muffins to it or cookies and things like that, and you're going to be at $1,500 with Marriott. So things in life are not free. And Jeff Imrie is also offering a commissioned angel wings sculpture. And we've got a lot of other great deals here that you could come in on for PR marketing, social media, signage, physical security needs. We do have people that show up like today who are not welcomed, and they're being followed and harassed, and there are people that do not appreciate them speaking out. So I think one of our initial speakers, the doctor, she mentioned that she's going to get a lot of backblast for doing what she did today, and she's just pretty much waiting on receiving that. So not a whole lot of fun to look forward to. Jean Marie, if it's okay with you, do you think we should go on now then into Dr. Craig Childress?
I do. I was just waiting to make sure Dawn was fine with it. I'm good. I think we had a wonderful little break there, Marty. Thank you so much for giving a shout out.
Yep, I'm good with it.
Answers. Oh, yay, Dawn, you're here. Hello.
Yeah, I'm still here, but yeah, I think we're good to transition.
All right, well then let's do it without further ado. Immediately, Dr. Childress is going to be next. And we have a welcome screen for him, just like we do anybody else. So Dr. Childress is a licensed clinical psychologist. He was on earlier this morning and presented to us a welcome as an ally to the conference. So nice of him to do that. And he is a clinical psychologist and ally of the conference. He specifically works in the clinical child and family therapy field. Attached pathology in childhood is a specialty of his. Child abuse and complex trauma situations, delusional and thought disorder pathology, very important areas that he works in. The parent, child, and marital conflict area, ADHD, oppositional defiance, conduct problems for children, and then autism spectrum pathology, as well as early childhood mental health, where he's working in there between the ages of 0 and 5 years old. And finally, court-involved family conflicts surrounding divorce and the problems associated with that. I think we have heard a lot today about family court across the world, Jean Marie, from Australia to now Canada, to Ireland, and the church and the controls that some of these facilities have in the world, depending on the country you're in. It seemed like we've heard a lot of that, don't you think?
Oh my goodness, we have, absolutely. And even mentioning, you said this is a global issue, and it does affect all the various facets of the government, of society, of the mental health and wellness arena. Even one of our speakers had mentioned the Hogue, what is in place or what is not in place needs to take a look at what we are sharing today. It's more than just a cause. It's bringing an awareness to something that it has not, up until today, as far as I know, historically been addressed. And we are making and wanting to make this truly a day, not only mental health and wellness, but to acknowledge that parent alienation and child psychological abuse is impacted in so many ways throughout our world. And Dr. Childress truly can speak to this, bar none, with his competencies, knowledge, skills, and experience. And
yeah, even it was amazing to hear the Royal Canadian Mounted Police need to,
oh my God, yes,
do some changes. So I don't think people are dreaming this stuff up when they're talking about what they experience in Australia, Ireland, or the United States. We're hearing it from Canada. It does seem to be, like was said, when you look at any group of human beings, you're really looking at the whole human race.
We are, and I think, and not to interrupt, Marty, but I think what sticks out in my mind as well is we're speaking about, it doesn't matter what economic level you are at. And this is across the board. It's not just poverty in a sense. I mean, we're looking to the wealthy. It affects all, that's all, and it's about, and as Dawn could speak to this so eloquently too, more than anybody as well, the identity. I'm hearing that over and over in so many levels, people needing to know that what has been done to them does not define them. Am I saying that correctly, Dawn?
I think so.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think tomorrow's speeches, mine and Marty's included, will touch on exactly what you just said. I say that nobody is immune to this. It's not, there's no prejudice in who experiences child psychological abuse. It can be from the farmhouse to the White House. So it could be around the world. It can be dignitaries. It doesn't have any kind of like criteria of who can be affected by this. And so we'll talk more about that in tomorrow's speeches too. So want to make sure everybody comes back tomorrow for even more powerful, well, not more powerful, but more powerful stories. Yeah, stories.
Well, let me put Dr. Childress on. I think I'm getting a phone call from the tree horticulturist company from our Hurricane Helene. So this is the perfect time. I will put this video on and maybe meet with the tree expert. We even have some trees that flew through the air up into other trees. So it's pretty amazing. So let me share that now.
Hello, I'm Dr. Childress. The first annual conference for the now adult children of child abuse in the family courts. It's quite a long name. It'll shorten over the course of time, I'm sure. But this conference is the voice of the now adult children who have survived the family courts and excessive family conflict in their development. And so this is a wonderful milestone in the development of healing for trauma for both the parents and the historical trauma, as well as the children going forward, to begin to get the authentic voice of the children returning, even if it's now in the adult survivors of this pathology, the problem. And I would just want to start by noting there's a difference in terminology between mine, which I call them survivors, and their own self-identification as thrivers. And I would support that. I would agree with that, that there's a tremendous potential for the now adult survivors to actually turn this into I wouldn't say a positive necessarily, but thriving in the face of the challenges that they faced. So first off, I don't see myself as a speaker at this conference. I'm not a participant because I'm not a adult survivor of the family courts. I'm a professional who works in the family courts. So my voice is speaking with the voice of a professional, a psychologist. And that's, while valuable and important, we need to be here because this is child abuse and trauma, that's not the most important voice. The most important voice is that of the child, the authentic voice of the child, and helping the child to adults at whatever phase recover that authentic voice and discover and find that and begin to live into their authenticity, as opposed to the living for another person, satisfying the needs of someone else. To begin with as well, I want to be very cautious relative to the professionals and the community of the now adult survivors, or the children's voice coming out in that domain, as well as any potential children's voice within the family courts, although I don't expect that until we can protect the children there. But with the now adult voices, one of the problematic issues regarding this pathology is the exploitation of children by the adult, by the parent, to meet the parent's own needs. It's called being used as a regulatory object for the parent to meet the parent's needs. And that's a danger now with the voice of the adult survivors, the adult children coming forward, that there might be a desire from other forces, mental health professionals, parent groups, parents, to once again use that voice to meet some sort of end or goal. And that shouldn't be. If the now adult survivors, the thriving survivors of child abuse, if they seek to enter their voice into dialogue and discussion, that's their choice. But we need to be very cautious on the surrounding professionals, parents, and everybody, that it's not coming from us. We can carry our own voice and we can solve this pathology on our own. We don't need the children to lead us in that process. So the now adult survivors of child abuse, child psychological abuse. And I've titled the talk Recovery, Discovery, and Beyond. So it's the beyond point that has me most excited. What I want to start with is a clear understanding that what we're talking about is child abuse, and specifically child psychological abuse. That's a DSM-5 diagnosis, V995.51. And in this regard, I want to caution everybody who's working with the pathology in the family courts to stop using the euphemisms that hide child abuse. There's 3 of them currently being used: parental alienation, resist-refuse dynamic, and parent-child contact problems. All of those are euphemisms that hide the child abuse from view, from the court's understanding, and from effective treatment. And so if we're moving forward with treatment, it's really important to call child abuse so that we know what we're treating and don't hide it from everybody's understanding. Now, in this regard, let me say this as well, that in my role as a professional, I am very hardline about that with my professional colleagues. And I encourage the parents to stop using that as well, because the professionals are really bad around you. From a professional standpoint, we need to be using professional terminology. That's the DSM-5, and we need to diagnose it. And the diagnosis comes out to child psychological abuse. And that's what we need to be responding to as professionals. Okay. Now, for the community of the children and who are now grown to adulthood, who've gone through the family courts and the family conflict, you can call it whatever you want. Okay, that's you're not a professional therapist, you're not a doctor, and you've earned the right to find your own voice and self-identification. So I have no opinion on what the now adult survivors call the pathology. They can self-identify however they want. I will refer to it as a professional as child abuse, and a specific form of child abuse, child psychological abuse. So from my perspective, this is where we are. And it's important. It's like, what's your pathology? Is it ADHD? Is it autism? Is it bipolar? What is it that is actually, it's child abuse, child psychological abuse. That's where we are. And that's what your pathology is. And it's in trauma zone. Now, from my perspective, and this is the definition, this is what's going on as a professional, that the children of family court conflict are victims of psychological child abuse by a pathological, problematic, and fragile parent. First off, the term victims, I'm going to use that for the children. Yes, they are victims in this situation. Now, do you remain a victim? No, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. You're going to integrate that or develop a different approach than being a victim. But the children in the family courts are victims of psychological child abuse by a pathological, problematic, fragile parent. And each one of those applies in a different way. So the pathological parent, I think that's important to identify, that this is a pathology. That parent who is doing this is injured. Okay, they are damaged in their attachment networks, their love and bonding system. And that's important to understand, that this is a pathology. This is a significant problem. It's in the DSM-5, and it needs to be addressed and needs to be resolved within the healthcare system. In addition, though, once we understand that, we don't need to continue to press that particular feature of the pathology. This parent, while pathological, that means the same thing as problematic. And so from a professional standpoint, we will understand what the pathology is, but from a human perspective, in interacting with that person, they're a problematic person. Okay, everybody's got a little bumpy in some way. We all have our issues, and that they have kind of significant issues. They're problematic parent. And so in coping with that parent through a lifetime, because they're going to be your mom or dad forever, you'll have to make adjustments based on how problematic they are. The third description of them is as a fragile parent. And this brings compassion to the understanding. And this is where the healing will take place and the movement forward will come from recognizing that they're a fragile person, and they're doing the best they can, and they can't do better than what they're doing because of the traumas that they've been through and the difficulties that they've been through in their lives. That doesn't make them less problematic, and it doesn't make it not a pathology in child abuse. It just expands our understanding for the humanity that's involved on all levels with everybody. We just got a bunch of people here who are struggling with difficult situations. So that the child is a victim of child abuse, and that you are a survivor of that child abuse, that's not the end of the story, though. That's just the beginning of the story and of the solution. And what's occurring right now, what's happening in the family courts and with you and with the development of our society and our people, is that the child victims of this situation are growing up to find their voice. And this is what this conference is all about, is the beginning of that, of those steps. And it's a process. You just don't automatically say, oh, now I know. It's a process of finding authenticity. And more importantly, how do you find because there's no, looking for what your authenticity is going to be challenged, because you're going to find it's kind of shifts and changes. What's important is the steps or the way you locate yourself. How do you locate yourself? Because this type of pathology with the parent, the problematic pathological parent, for them, they can't regulate their emotions very well. Things get very painful for them. And for them to be able to limit the pain they feel, they have to change reality, because reality is just too painful for them, whatever it is. So they need to adjust things to their better liking. And so if they need the sky to be red, they simply say it's red. And they say, yeah, the sky is red. And if they need it to be yellow in 10 minutes, they just say it's yellow in 10 minutes. And for them, truth and reality is whatever they assert it is. Now, that's very hard for anybody who lives with them, particularly a child who looks up in the sky and says, oh, what a pretty blue sky. And the parent says, that's not blue, that's red. The child goes, whoa, what do you mean, red? Okay. Next time the child goes, whoa, what a pretty red sky. And the parent says, that's not red, it's yellow. The child goes, whoa. The next time the child looks up at the sky and says, that's a pretty, and then they'd search for the cues. Is it red? Is it blue? Is it green? What is the sky? And they have to be told what the sky is by the parent. And that's where the parent uses the child as a regulatory object. The child is taking care of the parents rather than the parent validating the child's experience. And so with that, though, the sky, the sky is not changeable. Okay. The sky is what it is. And it's not, whether it's red or blue or yellow or green is not the issue. It's how do you find that for yourself? Well, you look up at the sky and see it. Okay. And it's that process of finding for yourself what the truth is, rather than being told by everybody. So the sky's not blue because I say it is. You can look up and see it is. And so that's the process that's occurring with the child abuse victims of the situation. The first step in finding authenticity that I would recommend in the recovery process is to find your values. And I recommend that as the first step, because once you begin to discover yourself, you'll come to discover that the self kind of changes around. It's kind of malleable, and it kind of can move with the situation. And one of the important elements of finding authenticity is finding what your values are. And they can be truth or loyalty, or, there's 1,000 different, love, or, justice. There's 1,000 different potential values that can help organize your life, but they will give structure to your world, that there's some sort of structure in which you live. And so that would be my first recommendation relative to recovery, is to find your values. Now, I want to speak specifically about one particular value that is problematic with this pathology. And it comes from a narcissistic parent. It's a narcissistic pathology, which means that they're focused on themselves and not on the child. And that narcissistic value system has an absence of empathy. That's classic for the narcissist, is an absence of empathy. And the absence of empathy leads to the belief system, or the value system, that it's okay to be cruel to other people if they deserve it. And then they go around deciding who deserves their cruelty, and then they mete it out in some justice sort of way. That the value is, it's okay to be cruel if they deserve it. And that's not true. Okay. The actual value system is, we're not nice to other people because of who they are. We're nice because of who we are. Okay. And so that's that reorientation to the value. And I would strongly recommend reorienting away from that narcissistic value. It's not okay to be cruel because of the damage that does to you. Okay, that's not who you are. You're not a cruel person. And so reorient to the values that says, I'm not a cruel person. I'm not going to act cruel. Are there problem people? Yes. Are there difficult situations? Yes. But that's not a justification for cruelty to anybody. People are struggling, and everybody's doing the best they can. Okay, we can do what we have to do, but we don't need to be cruel about it. That it's okay to be cruel if they deserve it. That's the spousal abuse theme. That, yeah, of course I hit her. She deserved it. My dinner was cold. She deserved it. Okay. No one deserves cruelty. So that would be my first recommendation on the recovery, is to reorient to your values and find where your values are, to help begin to structure your path back, and your self-authenticity. Now, in terms of understanding where we are and what we're doing and what's happening, the pathology in the family courts, and what everybody's struggling with, the children and the parents and everybody, is the transgenerational transmission of trauma. Okay, that's the pathology. So if people come to your community meeting and say, I belong to ADHD, and I belong to eating disorders, and I belong to schizophrenia, and you go, well, what's my pathology? It's trauma. Your pathology is trauma. And specifically, though, it's not the bomb blowing up kind of trauma, or trauma that school shooting is going to cause. And it's not the trauma of physical abuse or child abuse or sex child abuse, trauma like that. It's a transgenerational trauma. It's a rippling of trauma from one generation to the next. And so the parents and the parents' parents, and there are the ones who experienced the nasty stuff, the real traumatic kinds of things, the abuse levels, and that distorted their parenting. Okay, so that because they didn't resolve their own traumas in the love and bonding system of the brain, the attachment system, that's where they're located. And so they have traumatized love and bonding, and they never fixed it. They never got therapy. They never healed that. And that distorted their parenting and spousal relationships. And so that's what we're experiencing, is that distortion to parenting that's coming from unresolved trauma. And that's why I call them fragile as well as pathological. And what transgenerational trauma looks like, just to show you for a second. This is just a little slice of it. So that's you, the child in the middle there, that half blue, half yellow little circle, that's you. And you can see the one side of the family is blue, the other side is yellow there. And everybody's working with trauma, and you have two parents who are off to the sides who have their own trauma. They each have two parents, and they each have two parents. And within a generation or two, we're getting everybody's distortions. And again, that's how trauma moves through generations. It distorts the parenting that we do to the next children. We don't parent quite as bad as happened to us. And so we're removing trauma from the world. So, we used to have slavery, and we used to, have extremely violent wars, civil wars, and Napoleon, and all sorts of bad stuff. We're getting better. Okay. With each generation, we're processing more and more and working it through, but we're still carrying so much trauma from generations before, embedded in the distorted parenting that the unresolved trauma creates. And so what the child in every generation, what the child of transgenerational trauma is a destiny almost, is that we all combine traumas from two different families, from two different family histories, from two different family cultures. And so the child that's the birthright of the child, is their two cultural histories or two family lineages, and the family bonds to two families. That's their heritage, as well as all the traumas that are coming from two families. And it is the destiny of that child to then resolve that and heal that, and stop passing it forward to the next generation. Now, if it overwhelms the child and it's just too much for that child to process during their lifetime, then it's going to distort that person's parenting, and they will pass it on to the next generation. And it'll be up to the next child to see if they can resolve two different family histories of developmental trauma, child abuse, and all sorts of stuff coming through the generations. Now, the other feature that I want to show you about the drawing here is the second arrow there, way down at the bottom, is green. And that's because if you combine blue and yellow, you get green. And so it's not just the integration of two different trauma lines and everything and all the stuff. It's actually coming up with a different thing. That when you integrate the lines of trauma from two family histories, you become different. Okay, so you're no longer the blue, and you're green. You're unique, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that authenticity to you. What is your color? Maybe it's purple. It's like, what is your color, not the family's color, although the family history is what gives you your various colors. Okay, if you got blue and red, you're going to be purple. If you got blue and yellow, you're going to be green. But it's ultimately that final color that you wind up on. That's transgenerational trauma. That's the nature of the pathology. So to understand that a little bit, and by way of introduction to the first annual conference, here's basically how I see the current situation for the now adult survivors of child psychological abuse, that it's like that old alchemical situation of, creating the philosopher's stone, getting a transformation, where you're putting a little vase and we'll plug the top and we'll put fire on you and we'll just kind of break you down. And in that process, you will reform into a new person, the person you are. But it's kind of intense when going through that kind of process. It's a transformational process. The fundamental issue within the recovery and going forward into a new life is the breach and repair sequence. It's been substantially researched by Ed Tronick out at Harvard with the still face study. And this is from a YouTube video that's up there. And I recommend everybody watch the still face. It's not about infants. It's about the brain. It's about a particular relationship system called intersubjectivity, but it's attachment and connection. And the still face looks at a process of breach and repair. And what they found in all their research is it's not about the breach. Breaches can be really big. We can have all sorts of big fights with people, and a lot of that's cultural. You get some very emotional cultures, they get very emotional in their fight, but they fix it. And they have good families and good bonds of love. Some of the Southern European nations, they're very emotional, but have good, solid family bonds. Others, some of the East Asian nations, are more subdued. They don't express a lot of emotions, and yet they have strong bonds as well. And so, it's not the breach that causes the damage. It's the failure to repair. Okay. If you leave it out there and you don't repair, that's where all the damage comes. And that's what Tronick and all talk about. They refer to it. I love this phrase. If you listen to this right at the end, Ed Tronick calls it the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is the day-to-day breach and repair. We have differences, we work them out, we fix them. The ugly is when there's a major breach. That's your still face. Okay, there's been a major breach. That's the good. The bad is the major breach. The ugly is failure to repair. Okay, so the good is breach and repair. The bad is a breach, and then the ugly is a failure to repair. So let me talk about that for a second. Of the breach and repair sequence. That this is what Tronick has studied with and it's not just Ed Tronick. There's a whole bunch of researchers. Daniel Stern has been prominent in this, and others, Trevarth and others. And what has been discovered is that the breach and repair sequence is not just good. It's like essential for healthy child development. And what it is that the child is going to encounter situations that they can't manage on their own. And when they do that, they emit problem behaviors, dysregulated emotions, dysregulated behavior, because they can't solve that situation. And what that does when they begin to act up like that or begin to get dysregulated is it signals the caregiver, the parent, to come over and help the child with that situation, help that child re-regulate their emotions or behavior and solve that situation. So when the child encounters something, they get all dysregulated, the parent comes in and helps the child reorganize again. All of the brain networks and brain systems that were used in that process get stronger through use-dependent development. They get stronger and more efficient. It's called scaffolding. And so that parent is coming over and helping the child develop the ability to re-regulate themselves because they're helping that child go from a dysregulated state to and so that breach and repair sequence is vital to healthy development, to develop thickness in the relationship, emotional self-regulation, a lot of stuff. If you don't get that, you get very fragile children that they get off and they can't repair. And that's what we have in the family courts. We get kids who can't repair because they're not being taught that crucial component of a breach and repair sequence of all relationships. So when they get in their own marriage and they get a fight, they're going to separate. They get emotional cutoffs. And so the fundamental issue is about the repair of relationships. And here's what Tronick and Gold in their book, Power of Discord, and I recommend everybody get Power of Discord. And this is where they talk about the breach and repair sequence. And here's a couple of statements from them. That repair is where the action is. We came to recognize that repair is the crux of human interactions. Repair leads to a feeling of pleasure, trust, and security. The implicit knowledge that I can overcome problems. Furthermore, repair teaches a critical life lesson. The negative feelings that arise from a mismatch can be changed into positive feelings when two people subsequently achieve a match. One doesn't have to get stuck in the negative feeling state. Okay. And that's a critical component of that breach and repair sequence. And it's a repair sequence. So we always want to repair. Now, how do we do that? How do we repair the relationship? Well, watch how it's done in the still phase. What happens in the still phase, you'll see, the breach is caused by what's called an empathic failure. Okay, that it feels really good to be one person and doing all this, but we're not one person, we're two people. So at some point, there's going to be an empathic failure by one person or the other. A little empathic failure, and that's going to create the breach. And when that happens, there'll be a little pop of angry and, ow, that hurts because it feels so good to be intimate and understood. And then you didn't understand me. And there's been an empathic failure. And so that's the still phase, is the empathic failure. So mom and the child are, interacting, and you can watch the multiple quick breach and repair sequences. Child breaks and then gets back, and they're just having normal kind of stuff going on. Then the mother creates the breach. She goes still phase. That's the empathic failure. And then you see the child try all sorts of ways to get her back. Come on, he tries to get her back. He's trying to figure out what's going on. And that's the motivation of the child. They always want to bond to the parent, figure out what's going on. The child doesn't say, you're a bad parent, I'm going to reject you. No, the child's trying to figure out and trying to reestablish that bond to the mom. And the mom stays still phase. And when the child can't do that, they begin to dysregulate all over the place. You can see they're crying. They can't look at the mom because it's just too painful, and they have to withdraw, and they start to cry, and then start to really, really cry. And the important thing about that period in watching that child become more and more distressed inside, and how deeply the child was distressed by an empathic failure and the breach thing, is that's in you. Okay, all the kids in the family courts who lost a parent because of the pathology and the issues going on, that's the grief. There's massive grief inside of you that got misattributed. Oh, they're doing a bad thing, and it's messing with stuff. Okay. And so that's one of the fundamental things to understand. I know there's a lot of anger and a lot of, there can be a lot of feelings involved and blame. And one of the core issues is going to be the sadness and grief over lost relationships, over lost bonding. And so there's grief counseling, or grief part of the recovery is going to be a feature of this, just because that's what happens when there's a breach. The thing to recognize, though, with that too, on the breach and repair, is how they repaired. How on the still phase, it's so simple. The mom just applied empathy. She just stopped the still phase and came back in. And you'll notice when she comes back and joins with the child, she doesn't try to make the child happy. Oh, come on, out of your sadness. No, she joins on the sadness. She shows empathy, and she starts to nurture the child's sadness. And look how fast the child gets back. When we apply empathy, that's what fixes it. And so it's actually breach and repair is pretty simple. There's a breach, empathic failure. How do you fix it? Empathy. But you need empathy going from one side to the other, and everybody's calling for empathy when it happens. You need to understand me, or you need to understand me. We just do it in sequences. Understand them first, then understand them, then understand them. And we apply empathy back and forth, and that brings everything in and solves the situation. So that's the breach and repair sequence. It's standard, it's healthy, it's good. We don't mind breaches. They are good things. We just need to fix them. And there's ways to do that. So let's see. The issue with empathy, there's wonderful research by Moore and Silvern on child abuse and outcomes for sex abuse and physical abuse, children who were abused. But it looked at the outcomes based on whether there was parental empathy or the absence of parental empathy. So you have child abuse with empathy, parental empathy, or without empathy. So the child abuse was done by somebody else, but they got parental empathy, or the child abuse was by them and there's no empathy. And what they found was in the research that those are one and the same thing. Okay, that all the damage was caused by the child abuse, or all the damage was caused by the failure of empathy. That when you look at the data, both of those account for the outcomes. If you were abused and you got parental empathy and there was empathy given to you, even as an abuse victim, your outcomes were normal. You were okay. You didn't have bad outcomes. If you were abused and there was no parental empathy for the abuse, that's when you get the bad outcomes. So one feature, just to understand, is that the absence of empathy, that's what this study shows, is in itself traumatic. Okay. Now, the narcissistic personality that's one of the prime symptom features, is the absence of empathy. So just being with a narcissistic personality is traumatic, living with them. And what happens for the kids in this situation is the parent's kind of fragile. They can collapse into very angry or very anxious or very sad states. So the child learns how to what to say and do to keep that parent in a regulated state, because you don't want them going dysregulated on you. They can get pretty fragile. And so that's where they begin to take care of the parent and become a regulatory object for the parent. The issue with the absence of cruelty or the absence of empathy is that's the capacity for cruelty. And that's from Simon Baron-Cohen, the brother, I think it's brother, maybe cousin of Borat, the other Baron-Cohen. But he's a psychiatrist and wrote on the science of evil, on empathy and the origins of cruelty. And he looked at actually the brain networks involved with empathy and cruelty. And there's only 3 pathologies that involve absence of empathy as a symptom: narcissistic personality disorder, psychopathic personality disorder, and autism. So if we take autism out of the thing, that's a pretty distinctive symptom, absence of empathy, and it's where we get the cruelty. So to summarize, to close up my introduction to welcoming the voice of the child, now represented by the recovering and discovering adult who's moving beyond the child abuse and beyond the situation, that the sky is not blue because I say it is, The sky is blue is because you can look up and see it's blue. And so that's the concern or the issue from my side, is I want to kind of stay away, and allow the community, the voice of people who have shared that experience to come together in that shared empathy, for what it was like. And if you have different voices within their community, that's fine. That's totally fine. The breach is great. Okay. You just fix it. How do you fix it? Empathy. Okay. And that's a good process, learning to fix things like this. One of the features, because you're in trauma pathology, it has characteristics associated with it. One of the characteristics of trauma pathology is it adds the word extreme to every symptom. Extreme anger, rage, extreme sadness, suicidality, extreme anxiety, panic. And so anytime you have the word extreme on a symptom, you're in trauma world. And with trauma, it's a scary. It's like, there's a danger. And so you're in anxious. It's a high anxiety world. Everybody goes up, high arousal, brain gets, PTSD, it gets traumatized with bomb blasts or whatever. And so everybody goes up, and anxiety is very contagious. Oh, in a social group, we're like herd animals. If somebody sees a predator, we all go, oh my goodness. It's like, and so anxious is very contagious within our social group. And so what happens with trauma pathology is everybody goes up and starts living on the ceiling. Everything's the most important thing in the world. And this is and there's intensity to everything. And the treatment for that, what the psychologists need to come in and do and get everybody to do, is come down off the ceiling. It's okay. Okay. It's not bad. There's no difficulties that can't be overcome. We can figure it out. And to bring that anxiety down, to bring the arousal down, bring the extremity down, and move towards solutions. Just what's the solution? Not the problem. You can talk forever about what the problem is. What's the solution for it? How do we fix that situation? So with that, I'm going to close my welcoming talk today to the first annual conference for the voice of the now adult survivors and thrivers of family court child abuse and trauma from the family court conflict. One more thing, somebody say about survivors and thrivers kind of situation. One of the organizers, one of the speakers you'll be hearing, is from Dr. Elise Price-Tobler, and in Australia. And she is an excellent example of how psychological child abuse can actually, it doesn't need to crush you. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't say it's a good thing, but it doesn't need to be crushing and can actually be growth promoting. So she came out of, her stories came out of a very severe type of this pathology. There's two versions. One is your classic version in the family courts of the custody come. The second is abduction. Okay, when you get child abduction, same pathology, but it's at a different intensity level and different damages going on with that. And so she came out of that, and has gotten a doctorate degree and is continuing to succeed and thrive in her world once she got her feet back under her. So I think that's a very insightful approach into understanding that this is not just about recovery from the trauma or discovering your authenticity. It's actually beyond that. It's like, what do you do then? Where do you go when it's your life? And how do you live that life independent of all the nonsense that came before? Let me close with one other thing, just to talk about the sadness and the grief, and to resolve the sadness and the grief. For kids in the family court trauma, during that process, one of the parents made you reject the other, or to reject the other one. And so in that process, you lost a parent. A parent died. And there's a tremendous amount of grief in that. When you become aware of what took place and how the allied parent set that situation into motion, you lose the relationship with that parent. So now you're an orphan. Oh my goodness. That's so incredibly difficult. This particular pathology is so incredibly tragic. And as you move forward into the beyond phase, I'm going to encourage you to heal that, going back into the transgenerational trauma so that it doesn't move to the next generation. You have two parents, mom and dad. You will always have mom and dad. Both of them are bumpy because everybody's bumpy. That's a breach and repair. One of them is particularly fragile from their history of trauma, and that's to move through. But cruelty never fixed anything. And so a larger perspective, I think, will help guide you through the process. So with that, good luck, everybody. I look forward to hearing all the talks and experiences of everybody coming out and coming forward with your experiences. So take care.
Patty, my goodness, Dawn.
Here I am.
Yay, beautiful Dawn. She made it. Nothing will stop
I
us.
made it. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my God. And right at the best time, the whole conference has been best, but Dr. Childress, he was just so eloquent, so
I know, I wish he was
spot on.
here because, man, we could ask him so many questions.
I know, right? But look at, this is so unusual. My voice, excuse me.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Mouse. This was such value driven, and to have him share so many precious pearls of wisdom. And I truly say that from the heart, for not only the healing of the children, but the parents and the generations and the future. He gave so many excellent points. One, I'll start off and then I'll let you two take it, but the break and repair and the scaffolding, and then talking about the thrivers and the empathy, the importance of empathy, and how key is that? That is the key that is missing in a narcissist. And I mean, there was so much I've not heard before. So I truly embrace the fact that he took the time to come and was here. So thank you. Go ahead.
It is such, it's such a gift for him to do that for us. I totally appreciate, I can't even express how much I appreciate that he came to be a small part of our big movement, and that he supports us as an ally. And what he's saying is that he doesn't want to be our voice. So while you heard him say, I'm not a speaker, I'm not in this community. What he's saying is they are finding their way and I'm not going to speak for them. So it's so powerful for him to validate us and support us and help us just be who we need to be, that authentic voice of the child. So I'm very appreciative that he was here, that he shares some of those things, because everything he says is spot on. I identify with so much of what he says and shares. If you look at any of his research or his pamphlets that Elise was talking about earlier this morning, if you look at his ABPA, the models, all of that stuff is really easy to look at and say, okay, this I understand. I can actually understand this. And that to me was what was very important in learning to understand from that psychological perspective of what happened. What happened to me? That was my question. So he identifies that. He basically tells, this is how it happened. And
Right.
it's a beautiful way that he portrayed that and displayed it on the screen for us to kind of visualize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like he validated it. He
Mhm.
validated
He validated it. Yeah.
what you were feeling and thinking.
Yeah.
And one thing that I loved is his analogy with the story with the child looking up at the sky and identifying the color and being told no and being told no again. And so
Yep.
you could see why then how the child is going to go into their shell and wants to please you or please the parent or
Yeah.
grandparent, whichever it is, and how he speaks.
Yeah, and you heard him say, yeah, definitely. You heard him say about how the child then tries to go into pleasing mode. And I was just sitting here in the background thinking, oh my gosh, I went into mom's mad. What kind of chores can I do? I made coupon books. I'll give you free hugs, or I'll cook dinner, I'll do dishes, I'll wash the car, or I'll go buy her a gift. And those were my way of regulating my parent. So I had to turn into this regulating, not a master, but just you have to learn the skill to preserve and be, make sure you're safe. So that is absolutely, when he talks about that, it just makes me think,
Wow.
yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And now I don't have to buy gifts because I can let someone else regulate themselves.
Oh, 1,000%. No, and my heart goes out truly, truly. And again, Dr. Elise and Dr. Childress, you two are just amazing people, and the value brought to this is priceless.
Absolutely.
And Patty, you have been so patient. You get the gold star, the award, the halo, everything. It's all on you. We're just thanking you for your patience. Shall we go?
Yeah.
Or what John?
Yeah, I just want to come in here because I haven't had a chance to really say it on the screen. Is thank you guys so much for stepping in and being me and just taking over and running this and making sure that the show goes on. I can't thank you enough. I knew the conference was in great hands, and I think it went off very powerfully. I think this was a great start. So I'm just blessed to have all of you in my life. So thank you for stepping in for me. Mwah, love you.
Absolutely. And I know I speak for all of us here and not on camera, but you did so much work behind the scenes and pushing this through and from conception to reality. And like you said, even a hurricane cannot stop us, right?
Not gonna stop it.
Patty, right? She's a force, right? So you are welcome. And we truly mean that with all our hearts. So you continue to stay safe because I know you're still in that zone. You're still at the threat in Florida. And we truly do send our prayers to you and to everyone who is experiencing any type of hardship right now.
Yes, and thank you for the moment of silence this morning too. I think that was beautiful to do that. And I have power on now, which is great. We still have some cleanup to do. We lost shingles off of our roof, so we're going to have to contact people to have things repaired. But luckily, trees fell away from houses and not on houses in our area. And I pray and hope everybody else south of us, I have family south of us too, that they're safe and that they can recover quickly.
Oh, our prayers